Hi everyone, I'm Will Brown and welcome to the WPQuickies series, bite-sized WordPress tips and tricks in 30 minutes or less. So in this lunchtime quickies, I'm going to show you how to implement two-factor authentication or 2FA for WordPress security for your logins. This topic was sent in by regular WPQuickies viewer Dowie, so thanks Dowie for that suggestion. That's really, really good. And thanks for everyone for taking your time with me on this nice and sunny Sydney afternoon in quarantine lockdown. So hi to all you guys there and for you guys watching on replay as well, and for our international viewers. I'm looking a little bit orange, so let me just change there we go, that's a bit better. So I was looking a little bit too orange there. I'll just increase that. There we go, my little light ring. Okay, so before we start, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you click on that subscribe button and hit that bell. Get that little ding, that bell, and it's going to notify you of my latest videos on YouTube. And if you're on Facebook, then give me a big thumbs up as well, and that'd be really, really good. And if you want to ask some questions throughout this, then pop them down in the comments below. Use hashtag ask at the beginning, just so that I know what to sort them out from all the comments in there. So we've got some people in the comments at the moment. We've got on top from a sunny Sydney. It is quite nice today. I am impressed. It's been a bit chilly so far, and today it's really, really lovely outside. Nice sunny weather. I think it might even reach 20 degrees today, and so they said on the weather. And we've got Paul Murphy as well, and Joey J from Singapore, and Alan as well from lockdown. Yep, everyone's in lockdown in Sydney, unfortunately, until 30th of July, until the end of July. So we'll just have to see how things go from there. So thanks, guys. We've got Cameron as well. Cameron's joining us from Victor Harbour. So thank you very much, Cameron, for tuning in. So we'll get right into it today. So today, this is actually episode number 52. Can you imagine that? A whole year's worth of WP Quickies.
Great success.
Great success. So I'm really looking forward to doing some more WP Quickies towards the end for this year. And we'll just see how it goes towards the end of the year, see if we can do another year's worth or maybe do something different. But let's jump into 2FA at the moment. Okay, so what is two-factor authentication? Well, it's got many names. One of its other names is multi-factor authentication. But 2FA, it basically adds a secondary layer of security to your regular username and password combination when you're trying to log in to WordPress or any other system. But we're talking about WordPress today. So 2FA, it's usually implemented using a secondary device, such as a mobile phone, or a key fob, or a USB stick. Something that's accessible only to you, something you can carry around and access very, really easily at all times. So the format of 2FA, it's usually a numeric or alphanumeric code of varying length, sometimes maybe between 6 or 8 characters, not too long. You need to be something that's easy to type in. And something that times out as well, so or changes over time. So usually within 60 seconds, the code will regenerate for another code. Now, authentication codes that expire after a set time, they're also known as one-time passwords or OTP. So it's a lot of acronyms within this topic. So 2FA, OTP, lots of different acronyms for those. But we'll just carry on and cover some of those in a minute. And so the codes, they can be generated from an app. They can be generated directly from a little key fob as well. So some people have little credit cards or little tiny key fobs that's got the number that just cycles through every 60 seconds. Or from a USB stick as well. So there's dedicated USB sticks that can add this extra two-factor authentication. Or sometimes via SMS or email as well. So in addition to logging in with your regular username and password, any system that's configured with 2FA or multi-factor authentication is going to ask for that additional authentication code from that device of your choice. So expiring codes on devices that can make it difficult for a hacker, of course, because they don't have access to that code. And because it regenerates or refreshes after 60 seconds, makes it even more difficult. So even if they are, walking past and they get a glimpse of your authentication code and they run to try and log in, they've got to do that within that refresh rate. Otherwise, the code is wrong and they won't be able to log in. So 2FA, two-factor authentication, really, really good. I have it on all my websites, and I recommend it very, very highly and strongly to all my client webs users as well, so that they can implement that on their own websites. But let's dive into a little bit about 2FA. So I get asked often by my clients how secure actually is two-factor authentication. So if a hacker manages to get physical access to your authentication device, then of course they can use that to log in. So number one tip is don't lose your authentication device, whether it's your mobile phone, whether it's your USB key fob, or it's your little credit card changer or whatever. Don't lose access to that authentication route, because that is the one thing that's making 2FA super secure. Okay, so as many two-factor authentication codes, a lot of them are still sent via SMS. So originally when two-factor authentication kind of came on board, a lot of people would send the notifications out using SMS text message to a registered phone number. So there is something called SIM hijacking that you should be aware about. Now, SIM hijacking is where a bad actor, or a hacker, we call them bad actors, convinces a mobile phone carrier to change the SIM card that's associated with a phone number. And basically the bad actor then gets access to that phone number and can receive two-factor authentication codes sent out to text messages via the SMS messages. Now, this doesn't happen very often, but it is something that is on the increase, and it requires a little bit of what we call social engineering. So you may find that you might get like a text message that has like an order confirmation code or a parcel to be delivered code. And you're like, something unexpected. And then you might receive a phone call from somebody to say, oh, your order is being delivered today. We've sent you the code. And then you'll say something like, I've not ordered that. I'm not expecting anything. And then they can come back and say something, oh, well, can you just read out that little code? And I'll check my systems to make sure, it's all up to date. And that's you being tricked into sending the code that will hand over that SIM card to this other carrier. And then that person then gets control of your phone number, and then they can basically issue all those two-factor authentication codes to your mobile phone. So it's something that is rising. It's not something that they can electronically do themselves. There has to be this part of chatting to somebody and trying to entice them to give them that code. But again, it is on the rise. So just look out for that type of social engineer, and just be aware of anything that sounds a bit suspicious. Then don't read out any codes to anyone. Always phone the company directly back to do that. So that is SIM hijacking, and that is a way to get access to somebody's two-factor authentication codes and devices. Another security method is the Authentication Apps themselves. So there have been hacks targeting the actual apps themselves, so like the Google Authenticator App, as a way to kind of intercept codes generated by the mobile phone. So there were a few articles in 2020 on how Android malware could read the two-factor authentication codes generated by the Google Authenticator app. Now, I'm not going to go into all the details about how that's done. I'll post an article in the comments and you can read that yourself. But basically, it involves getting malware onto the Android device. And then that malware, from an operating system point of view, can read the Google Authenticator app codes for those. Okay, so let's have a look at the different levels of security with two-factor authentication. So direct two-factor authentication security USB sticks, like the YubiKey. So there's a little GIF showing what the YubiKey. You might not have heard of that one before. So it's a little USB stick that you put into your USB port for your laptop or your computer, and then it's got a fingerprint scanner on there, and that basically authenticates you into access to the computer itself, but it can be integrated into any applications that you want as well. So I'll just put a link down to the YubiKey down there. So for WordPress, yes, there is an actual plugin. It's not an official one that's in the repository, and I'll put a link down in the comments below. But there is a GitHub repository that contains a plugin that you can connect your YubiKey, if you've got one, directly to our WordPress website. So you can use your little YubiKey to log in to any WordPress website that has that plugin in there. Very, very handy. And again, excellent 2FA security for these YubiKeys, because they're generally the self-contained system. It's really, really difficult to hack, and of course it requires your biometric, your fingerprint, to get in. So it's probably the safest and most secure level of two-factor authentication is these type of keys, and I'm fairly sure Google has one as well, but I don't think it's available for purchase in Australia. I think it's still just the USA for those. But YubiKey is definitely like a general one, and it's quite a good brand as well. So have a look at that, check that out if you want a really, really secure 2FA method of accessing you and your clients' WordPress websites. The next level down in 2FA, and this is probably the most popular one, to be honest, is smartphone authenticator apps. So yeah, it's going to be the second kind of best level of security for two-factor authentication. Now, there is a chance that someone could steal the codes if, and we've talked about that, if a bad actor places malware onto your phone's operating systems, and then, they spoof, they can read some of those Authenticator app and send them directly to them. But, that's pretty rare occurrence. You need to be installing software that's not really from the Google Play store itself. Yes, it can happen theoretically, but does it happen all the time? Probably not. I think you're pretty safe, pretty secure using your mobile phone and the Google Authenticator app or any other authenticator apps. As long as you're downloading official copies of apps and not downloading apps from elsewhere for those. Okay, let's see. Also using your smartphone, you were going to talk about, we talked about text messages as well, but one-time codes via emails as well, in general, is going to be less secure. So a lot of people view their emails on their mobile phones. So again, because emails are transferred through multiple networks, multiple points, then using emails for 2FA on your smartphone is kind of less secure than using an authenticator app, because there's more points where somebody can intercept that email, especially if it's sent unencrypted. Okay, so how to use 2FA logins for WordPress. Now, the easiest way to implement this for WordPress is to use the Wordfence security plugin. Now, I've talked about Wordfence a lot. It's one of the security plugins that I use on my sites and all my client websites as well. It's really good. It's robust. It's been around for a long time, and it's a big player in the WordPress security arena. So using that along with the Google Authenticator app for your smartphone, I think is the easiest way to implement this for WordPress. So let's have a quick look. Now, you can get Wordfence directly from the WordPress.org repository. I'll send a link down there from there, or directly from within your WordPress admin dashboard in the plugins area. Just search for Wordfence, and you can install and activate that from there. So once you have your Wordfence installed, you're going to go down to the login security, and you're going to see something similar to this page here. So Wordfence and then login security, oh no, this is for Google Authenticator. Okay, so we've got Wordfence installed. You've got that in there, and then next thing to do, obviously, you need to install the Authenticator app on your smartphone. So you can download the Google Authenticator app from the Google Play account and from the Apple App Store as well. And I'll put links in the comments after this video. Well, it's fairly easy. Just go into the Play Store or the Apple App Store and type in Google Authenticator app, and you're going to see this icon here for the kind of gray G for Google Shield, and you're going to set up your system for this. So when you open it up, you'll see set up your first account, and then there's only really two ways. You can scan a QR code to set it up, or you can enter a setup key as well. And then the image on the far right there, that's what the authenticator looks like in real time. So you've got a 6-digit code for each different security website that you're going into, and you've got a little timer. It's a little pi timer that times 60 seconds that goes down. And once that hits 0, it refreshes the new codes, and then the timer starts again. So really, really simple to use for that. So here's Wordfence. I'll make that a little bit bigger from here. So once you've installed Wordfence and you've got your Google Authenticator app running, and you need to set it up for this WordPress website. So you go down into Wordfence and login security, and this is the screen that's going to come up. So it's really, really easy. There's 2 simple steps. So the first step is step 1. So scan your code. So this is where you go into your Google Authenticator app and you click on the scan QR code and scan that code there. Or you can click on the button that says enter setup key. That's down on this, and then enter this big key that's at the very bottom. You probably can't see that, it's underneath the QR code. So if for whatever reason your QR code scanner isn't working, you can type in the key. So there's always a couple of ways to set up the Google Authenticator app for that. So once you have scanned your code on this Wordfence page, then you'll get the code on your authenticator device, and then you want to put that into the field on the box in step 2 in the right hand side. So that's the box at the very bottom that says 1 2 3 4 5 6. It's a field. So you type in the authenticator app and then press activate, and that's going to link your Google code with this website, and you can use it to log in after that. But before you go and leave this page, make sure that you copy or download in this step 2 box on the right hand side these recovery codes. Now, this is very common when you use 2FA, when you're setting up 2FA for the very first time on any website. After you've scanned the code, it's going to give you the chance, or it should give you the chance to download some backup codes. And these backup codes are codes that are going to allow you to go into the website if you don't have your Google Authenticator app working. So for whatever reason, if your battery's died on your mobile phone, or it's just not working, it's crashed or whatever, you should have access to these backup codes somewhere stored, somewhere private and safe, but that you can access at any time. And you can use any of these codes to get back in to your login site. That kind of doesn't bypass the 2FA, but these are actual codes for the 2FA. So make sure that you copy those and download those before you leave the screen. Otherwise, you won't be able to get them after that. So once that's done, once you've set it up, you've got your codes that are refreshing in your Google Authenticator app. Next time you log in with WordPress, you're obviously going to enter your current username and password as normal, but then you're going to see this screen here, and it's just asking for your two-factor authentication code. And this is where you go into your Authenticator app on your little mobile phone, and the codes refresh. You find out which website it is, and then you enter the 6-digit codes on there and log in. And of course, make sure that you enter the right code, and it's not going to time out. So sometimes when you go to your Authenticator app, the little pie is almost right to the end of the 60 seconds. So just wait until it refreshes and then type in the new code. And press enter, and that's going to get you into your WordPress website. Another little tip that I find when using the Google Authenticator app as well is sometimes it can get out of sync. So there's a little option in your Google Authenticator. As you've got the 3 vertical dots at the very top right hand side, you click on those and you can actually resync your Google Authenticator code with the proper time code. Because if they get out of sync, then when you're typing in codes, it's not going to work because it's checking back with the Google Authenticator system. And if those codes are a little bit mismatched, then it's not going to let you in. So that's happened a couple of times over the past 5-6 years that I've used the Google Authenticator, the 2FA authentication, that I've had to resync for those. So it's not a common problem, but it can happen. So just kind of be aware of that. If you're typing in the code, and I've got heaps of websites, probably got about 40 websites in my Google Authenticator. So sometimes I do end up typing the wrong code or the right code for the wrong website, and that frustrates me. But if you are you're typing the right 2FA code for the right login on Google Authenticator, and it's coming up failed all the time, then that option to resync the time with the time, try that one. That should work out for you. So that's my quickest way of implementing 2FA with WordPress. So it's to use the Wordfence security plugin and to set up that with the Google Authenticator app on your smartphone. But there are other ways. I'm going to show one way. Now, there's lots of other ways, but some of the plugins that I used to use before Wordfence, now they are not updated anymore, so they're a bit out of date. They still actually work, but I like to keep things that are up to date all the time. Otherwise, security issues can creep in. So here's another one that you can use. So if you don't use Wordfence, you don't like Wordfence, or you use some other security plugin, you can use this plugin here. Now, it's called MiniOrange Google Authenticator App. In fact, it's got a huge, huge title, but it's basically the one from MiniOrange. And MiniOrange, they are a huge security provider, very, very big in the USA. Maybe not so much here, but they provide lots and lots of stuff on security, especially around about authentication and single sign-on, single password sign-on for those. But they do have this little plugin, and it works with your Google Authenticator app as well. So I'm not going to show you the setup because it's almost super similar to the Wordfence one. So again, you've got the one step where you scan the code, and then you enter the code from your app into the plugin administration page, set it up, download your backup codes, and that's you good to go. And it's exactly the same setup. You're going to be asked for your 2FA code right after your username and password has been authenticated. So that's it. That's it for today. If you've got any questions, then post them in the comments down below. But I would really, really highly recommend that you always use 2FA with any WordPress website that's live, that's production for you. Mostly on administrators, you don't really. You can maybe put it on editors if you've got a lot of editors for your website as well, but definitely administrators because they've got full access to WordPress. So make sure all your admin accounts are using 2FA, either with that plugin or with Wordfence as well. So Alan has a question here. He says, with the YubiKey, what happens if you lose it or break it? So again, with pretty much all two-factor authentication devices, with the YubiKey, you also, when you register it on the website, you also get a list of backup codes as well that you can download and save to your device. So that if that happens, then you can start using those codes. And those codes are one time, by the way. So you can't use the same code all the time. And that's why they give you multiple codes. So there's usually about maybe 12 or 20 codes that you can use from a sheet. And that gives you enough time to then get onto the YubiKey support and tell them that you've lost your key and you need a replacement for that. But that's basically what happens. If you lose it or break your key, then you need to get another one, and then you're going to use your backup code to get into whatever accounts that were secured with the YubiKey. And they're very, very quick in sending one out. I've got a couple of YubiKeys, but not with me at the moment. They're downstairs. But yeah, so I had one that wasn't working, and I got a replacement within 2 days. So they're really, really quick at sending it out. On top says, what happens if you lose the mobile that you have the Authenticator app installed? Yep, so that's a great question there, Dowie. So basically very, very similar. So I had that happen to me a couple of years ago. My Samsung broke down, so I had to take that to one of the Samsung repairs. I took it to the one in Parramatta, Westfield Parramatta. They've got a little support desk there. So they basically transferred it all over to a new phone and the Authenticator app as well for that. Now, what happens is you basically need to install the Authenticator app, again. And because you install on the Authenticator app, then it's going to come with new codes and new logins as well. So you basically need to be able to transfer it over. And this is where you use your backup codes. So you would use the backup codes, for example, Wordfence, you use one of those backup codes, get into your WordPress website. You'd then disable the two-factor authentication for your account. You then go through the harrows of having to get your new mobile phone, get it all loaded in, load in the Google Authenticator, and they need to do the whole re-authentication process again. So this is why the backup codes are so essential. If you lose that page, if you've not got them access and something happens, then it can be a real nightmare to get around the two-factor authentication. So from a WordPress point of view and Wordfence, that's your only route really, is to use your backup code. If you do have cPanel access, you can always disable Wordfence, and log in normally. But for the normal process, it would be a backup code that you go in, disable your two-factor authentication, get your mobile device sorted, and reload Google Authenticator app, and then go through that process of setting it up again with the new codes. So yeah, great question. Kingsley Forbes Smith asks, I understand that 2FA for this particular login, but how important if not all logins are using 2FA? Okay, right. So this is really where your concept of security comes in, basically. So for administrators, then yes, always two-factor authentication for your administrator roles. I have come across, I have lots of clients that use the editor role quite significantly. So they've got multiple logins for people that require, if you've got an editor role, then that means you can basically change anyone's post or page in the WordPress website. So in that instance, if you've got lots of people logging in as an editor role, I would put them also under two-factor authentication as well. But if you've just got a regular website where you've got customers, like a WooCommerce website or a subscription website, where you've got people who are logging in as subscribers to the system, then I wouldn't bother with two-factor authentication with them, because what they can do within the dashboard is hugely limited, just basically to interacting with their subscription, with the content within the subscription, or if it's an e-commerce shop, then they basically log into their account, and the only thing they can manipulate is their own account information and the products within there. So it really depends on the level of security that you got people logging into your WordPress website. If they can play with things like plugins, settings, and posts and pages, I would put a 2FA account on them. If they're under that, then I wouldn't bother about that too much. So yeah, great question, Kingsley. Dewey has another question. You answered this, but could you go into the plugin directory and rename to close down 2FA for a short time? Yes. Yep. So essentially, with the Wordfence setup or with the MiniOrange setup, you basically go into your web hosting panel, you go into the C panel, you find the directory in the plugins directory where that plugin, that security plugin is installed. Move that whole folder up one level into WP-content, and then refresh your WordPress dashboard. And then WordPress will recognize that that plugin's been removed, and therefore that removes your level of two-factor authentication, and you can just log in normally using your WordPress username and password. So you can always bypass that in WordPress if you've got access to your WordPress hosting. So yeah, great question. Thank you very much for all those questions. I can't see anything else coming through, and we're almost up for the 30 minutes. So I am going to go on with the other slides. So if you've got any suggestions for some more topics that I can cover, I like this one, like the 2FA one, which was fantastic. Scan that code in the QR just now or later on the replay, or you can just go to this link, and I'll post it in the comments there. And just suggest some more topics for me that I can add in over the next few weeks to the end of the year, and that'd be fantastic. We have a little shout out for WP Australia. So if you want to find all the meetups that are happening within Australia, the ones that are online and the ones that are physical as well, go onto wpaustralia.org and click on that Find a Meetup button. And there's also a button there, and it shows you exactly how to join up for our Slack account. So I'd highly advise as well, you just join Slack, get to know the members of the WordPress community here in Australia. You can chat with us, if you get a bit bored, or you can kind of post questions or ask some questions as well on those. It's pretty responsive. Group of people in there, and it's always good to get to know some people in the community here, especially hopefully when lockdown finishes, we can actually get out and about and start the physical meetups again. A little shout out for my website owner survival guide. You can visit that website in your own time. You guys, I'm happy to connect with you on LinkedIn. I'm under Developer Will just now. Probably might change that, but it's under Developer Will at the moment. Will Brown_AU on Instagram, and Developer Will on Twitter as well. So thank you so much, guys, for spending your time. Next week, I'm going to be talking about database engines, and this is another topic that's been sent through from one of the WPQuickies viewers. But we'll have a look at some of the different database engines that we can use with WordPress. That'll be quite interesting. Okay, guys, thank you so much for your time. Have a great day and a great week, and I'll see you next week. Thanks for watching.